Hello there, you're very welcome to the PwC Under-20s live match reaction show here on Balls.ie following Ireland's disappointing 15 points to 24 defeat over in Cardiff Arms Park in Wales against England in the Under-20s Six Nations. Looking back on that match, I'm delighted to be in the company of, albeit virtually, of Leinster and Ireland's Garry Ringrose and Leinster skills coach Brett Igoe. Gentlemen, pleasure as always to chat to you both. Garry, if I come to you first, what did you make of that 80 minutes of rugby as a viewing spectacle, as a contest?
Yeah, well, it doesn't feel like that long ago that I was out there, so not too far detachment, to be honest. But I'm sickened for them because I can imagine how disappointed they are. After that, they hung in there, especially in the first half when momentum wasn't quite going their way and having to deal with probably a high enough penalty count in the first half. And obviously stuck in the fight to get back into it the second half and ultimately nearly had a lifeline at the end there. You could probably see at the end when tempers boiled over when the final whistle went, just shows how much it meant to them. So, you know what I mean? I think it wasn't the most entertaining game in terms of the ball being thrown around as much. It was probably more tactical in both teams trying to suss each other out with a kicking game, which obviously brought the wind into play. But I feel for them that they didn't manage to get there in the end. But I'm sure they'll bounce back in the usual fashion the Ireland 20s do.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping to, I suppose, create a conversation here about free-flowing rugby. You know, going into this match, I looked at Ireland scoring 78 points in two matches, England 69 in two matches, 21 tries combined, but it was probably one for the purists, especially with some of those tries. But Brett, I suppose we will get into to analyze it in why it went wrong and where it went wrong. But I suppose in general, you know, what would be the biggest take-home message from Ireland, and what would they be most disappointed with?
Yeah, look, the lads, they tried their heart out for the whole of the 80 minutes, and I was probably pretty impressed with the way they stuck at the task. Some teams would have kind of packed up at half time. They were getting physically dominated at the breakdown, which probably an awful lot of Irish sides at age grade do against England. But look, we do eventually catch up with it. For me, the penalty count was probably too high and something that Richie will probably be very disappointed with. But look, we battled on. We worked hard. I thought we did some good stuff. I thought we had a really good line break in that first half down the short side. And we probably should have got a return from it. Nathan Dogue was probably disappointed with the penalty he missed, which would have got us around 7-3 at half time. But look, we did well up to a point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do have to say, I'm not trying to pawn off the workload, but for any of our viewers watching in, do get your comments in and we can get your questions both to Garry and to Brett. And if you do comment, you'll be entered into a draw to win a PwC Ireland Under-20s jersey. And that one is literally a money can't buy. You can't get them in the shops. So it's an exclusive offer to get your hands on that beautiful jersey. Do get your comments in. And as I say, I'll put them to Brett and Garry. But for now, I suppose I'll continue asking the questions. Brett, you talked about the penalty count there as well, and I will come to you in terms of kind of getting into detail on that. But when we're dissecting a match and we're discussing penalty counts, Garry, and the set piece, and, you know, we saw right at the end of the match as well, there seemed to be a bit of confusion with wanting to go to find touch, and then the tee already came on, so the referee said, no, you have to kick for goal, and eventually went for the drop goal, and unfortunately did go wide. Does that come, I suppose, down to experience, or is that trivializing it a bit much? Is it, you know, because these are players who are in academies, who are getting some senior game time with the provinces as well. But when it comes to game management, how difficult is that?
Yeah, no, it's pretty difficult, and whatever about experience, I think they were in a tough spot. I wasn't even sure what the best thing to do was, considering there's obviously getting a losing bonus point is an option if they had taken the three or taken a shot at least. Then also if they ended up drop kicking it, if that had gone over, there would have been time for a kick-off to receive that to run and go the length and score a try. So they were kind of between a rock and a hard place on that front, that they wanted to try to get a losing bonus point or to try and win the game. So it's tough on them, but that's kind of some of the dilemmas you're presented at 20s when the stakes are that little bit higher and the pressure's that little bit higher. I've no doubt some of the guys will learn from that and be better prepared going forward. You know what I mean? It was always going to come down to find enough margins, and it was just kind of annoying that it was that late in the game that the opportunity was presented to them. You mean a couple of minutes earlier, and with how the game was breaking up, especially towards the end, you would have backed for someone like Jamie Osborne or someone making a line break. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the case.
Yeah, top of the table clash, it certainly was going to come down to fine margins. I suppose, Brett, talk to me then about the penalty count. To the casual viewer, what went wrong and why did it go wrong, and what would be most disappointing in terms of the penalty count specifically?
Yeah, just looking at it, look, England had a hugely physical side, and one of the things you've got to prevent them doing is getting field position. Like, they scored their 2 maul tries. Like, Richie would have talked about it to the players beforehand. We can't give them field position. We can't give them that line out 6-7 meters out, because it is a huge strength of theirs. For me, the most frustrating thing for the players will be they were giving away silly penalties, like offside penalties. I think there was 4 in total. So they're not ones that come from massive pressure. I know they give away a few scrum penalties as well, but it just gifted the England side that line out 5-6 meters out, which they were able to build from, and they took their 2 tries pretty impressively.
Yeah, and I suppose continuing the conversation on the set piece as well, when you see, I suppose, Ewan Richards' try came from, Ireland missing touch, that must be a massive frustration for Richie Murphy and the coaching team as well, Brett.
Yeah, look, it will, but the under-20s traditionally has been a learning ground for all of these players. And you think of, like, I know Garry's there, like, we can list off a ton of players who have worn a senior jersey who've all come through this. So making mistakes, like, doers make mistakes. That's what happens. And they will learn from it. And these guys have, not only are they 19 years of age, they also haven't played rugby in 12, 15 months, some of them. So look, we've got excellent support staff with these players. They will sit down, they will review it, they will talk to the players, they'll do one-on-one with their coaches, they'll discuss it amongst themselves. We should have taken points here, we missed touch there, what do we need to do, with the view, and this is what the 20s is about, that they will learn from this, and then they actually go on, they do go on and play either A team or senior team for their provinces, that those mistakes reduce. They don't go away, they just reduce.
Yeah, Garry, we will get into detail a little bit later on about your experience in your own under-20s team with Ireland. But this squad and this group, this playing unit, how will they bounce back? And how do you feel Richie Murphy will approach it? Will it be player-driven? Will it be player-led? Will, Alex Candellin and more of the leaders in that group be asked to step up and, account for themselves and put forward from a player's point of view what went wrong and how they address it, or how much will be left at the coaches, or how is that balanced, I suppose, at the under-20 level, because it would be different, I suppose, to how you would deal with Andy Farrell or how you would deal with Leo Cullen.
Yeah, I guess I'd say it's a combination of the two. Ideally, in any team, you'd want to see player ownership and player accountability. But then obviously, as well, combined with that, the direction from the coaches. So in terms of motivation and turning it around, the fact that, they have the Italians next week or in the next few days, and there's still a tournament to play for, considering England have to play them too. And if you look at the Italians' results as well, they're by no means a side to be taken lightly. So I think the fact that there's still something to play for with regards to the Six Nations, as well as there's a lot of players that want to put their hands up for things beyond the 20s as well. And like you said, there's not much rugby for guys over the last year and a half because of COVID. So I can't see motivation dwindling at all, or bouncing back being an issue for these guys. As tough as it is to take that loss, I'm sure I've no doubt to be motivated, good to go, ready to go again next or in the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, Brett, continuing what Garry was saying there and looking forward now for this Irish team, one of the comments actually in from one of our viewers, Luciano, how does the future look from a transition into senior squad perspective for the current under-20 squad? And I suppose I'll bookend that with Eddie Jones has mentioned, and he's name-checked the likes of Finn Smith, Eddie Atkinson. If you were Andy Farrell, who are you keeping an eye on in particular now?
Yeah, look, this. Sorry, Garry, you go.
No, Brett, you take it. You take it.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, look, we already have, I think it's 6 players in this squad who've already played for the province already, which is huge, and I think it's the biggest of all the 20s. For me, I think Doak at 9 is a huge prospect. Also, if you have a look at the succession plan up in Ulster, he's probably at the right age profile. They'll have someone in their 30s as their main 9, but wouldn't it be great to see him get some backup time up there as well? Kendall, I know CJ Stander has retired and gone home. There's now a number 8 spot for Munster. It would be fantastic to see him get some sort of game time. And Jamie Osborne, who Garry trains with, who's come through the Leinster club system, is another one to watch. I think we probably have to be mindful of how these players are now managed. And I think it's something that the IRFU and the provinces have got really, really good at. They drip feed these players the right amount of game time. You just see people, you see Leo Cullen and Stuart Lancaster giving 50, 60 players in Leinster a run in the whole squad. Yeah, I don't think these guys will walk into a Heineken Cup game or anything like that, but I think into the new cup format, I think they'll definitely see game time. And the provinces are really good at it, and it's something that we do really, really well.
Yeah, Garry, you want to come in there? You wanted to put your Andy Farrell cap on?
Jeez, I don't know what he's thinking, but there was name checked a few there by Brett, and I'd agree with who we talk about. Obviously Nathan Doak has been unbelievable so far, and I think he still showed it today. He definitely looks like one who'd be earmarked for the future with Ulster and with Ireland. So he was someone who impressed me again today, and is continuing to do that over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and he's the absolute spit of his father as well. Never mind about looking for one for the future.
He's got his temperament as well.
Well, that's your opinion, not mine. Garry, when we're talking about the development of players as well, it's interesting when you look at that team. Say, for example, the likes of Ronan Loughnane, who was starting at hooker. He was second choice back in 5th year, 6th year, playing senior skills with Ross Gray. You look at Temi Lasisi, the prop, who you'd know from Leinster as well, who was dropped out of the Leinster sub academy due to COVID, just for numbers. Bernard Jackman was kind of speaking on that, and then he was back playing with Lansdowne. So it's about being patient as well. It's about biding your time, but it's also about ensuring that the desire and hunger and motivation is there. And I'm not taking away, obviously everyone wants to play rugby, wants to play at the highest level, but is it difficult for the likes of Ronan, if he's second choice in school, to push on and really press on and have that desire and hunger there throughout your rugby career?
I mean, those guys you mentioned, it's a testament to their character to stay as resilient as they have, and they're getting the rewards in being selected. So I know there's a lot of guys that I know have had ups and downs along the way, and even when you start playing at a senior level, which I've unfortunately had to learn the hard way over the last couple of years, is that the ups and downs continue, and it's usually people who kind of have that resilient element to their personality, how they work, and how they stay ready for any opportunity they get. That they're the ones that kick on, and seeing guys like that, it's incredibly impressive seeing them deliver at the 20s level, and that kind of seeing that would still inspire me, and that's right, because you just know you never know when your next opportunity is going to be. So it's kind of what you do away from that then ultimately determines what happens when that opportunity is presented to you.
Yeah, I know, Brett, you're in the skill system and you've been coaching, you've been around the block, you kind of know what to look out for, I suppose. And yes, we've name checked a few people there, and yes, we've discussed, I suppose, the pathway and development and how you go about it and how you have to be driven and you have to have that dedication as well. I think that's something that's extremely important. But what would the key characteristics be that you'd be looking out for in particular, Brett, for players that you could envisage going on to bigger and better things? Like, what would you be looking out for specifically?
Look, when these players come through, they're incredibly talented. They're incredibly motivated to put on their jersey for their provinces. For me, it's about their attitude. It's about their attitude to dealing with the nutritionist, dealing with the S&C coach, dealing with the analysis, dealing with the coaches. That positive attitude of that if a kid isn't getting picked, what happens? What does he do? Does he throw the toys out of the pram and take the ball and go home, or is he actually going to fight for those positions? So that's the type of player that you're looking for. I think with all the provinces, they have an array of talent, and it actually comes down to things like that. It comes down to a bit of luck as well. But for us, it's about that attitude that they want to win, they want to wear that jersey, they want to progress. Like we get them at 17 years of age, so we've seen most of these players come through already, and it is the ones that just want to hang in for that bit longer, and they want that bit more success than the person next to them.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, Gary, it's probably a bit of an awkward question when someone who's involved in the school system is next to us here in terms of Brett, but how good are the facilities and the pathway? Like, listen, everyone talks about the Leinster Academy. You know, Munster have brought through so many players as well this season. We've seen that. Both Ulster and Connacht have done remarkable things as well. But the foundations are there to provide the platform for these players to thrive. Has it differed much in your experience or in your opinion from when you were playing under-20s to when you're seeing the academy guys coming through now, in terms of conditioning, in terms of nutrition, in terms of advice that's available? Is this just constantly going up and up? And, you know, hopefully Irish rugby will reap the rewards for many years to come and continue to provide and to encourage and create and, I suppose, unveil, you know, these star players.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk too much about it from other than my own experience, but I think it's kind of a stepping stone each way, and the pressure just increases that little bit more. The stakes are a little bit higher, and from, say, my experience going through schools and then on to sort of 20s, sub academy, you play a couple of Leinster A games, then ideally make a debut, stuff like that. It's just kind of each stepping stone, and like we were talking about, it's not all pretty. You know what I mean? You learn some harsh lessons along the way, and then it's that kind of those moments that almost shape you to be the person then to kick on, if that makes sense. So I think the guys, like we were talking, the first thing really, the learnings they would have taken in this game, that's not going to stop for at all really. It still happens to me today and after each game. So it's how they deal with that and how they can use that to grow individually, and then obviously in this instance as a team, which I think ultimately has the biggest effect on how they progress as players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever about facilities, and obviously the coaches are and all that's important too. I think at the younger level, it's up for the player to derive as much value out of that as they possibly can, as opposed to be spoon fed from the coach's perspective. Usually that's kind of the best way going about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, is it difficult, I suppose, just to follow up on that, Brett, to find a balance of ensuring that you're not spoon feeding people, but ensuring you're giving these players the right opportunities?
Yeah, you've got to find that balance. Like, I'm probably speaking, I'm a lot older than Garry, so I can remember working with the senior team in Leinster where the players were changing at the back of a changing or out of their car in a car park in Old Belvedere Rugby Club. For me, the facilities has completely transformed in the last 10 years. Like, Garry's used to training out in Carton House, and obviously they've got their new high performance centre. But if you look at Leinster, the facility they have in UCD, the facility Munster have, the facility Ulster have, and Connacht have, is absolutely unrecognisable for what it was 10 years ago, even less. The age grade program in Leinster runs with a high performance centre in Donnybrook now, and it's a state of the art gym. It's a state of the art training facility. All the schools, the amount of schools in the last, say, 5 years, the likes of Michael's, Blackrock, Clongowes, who've all put in 4G pitches, all that comes from the school and the school's funding. Belvedere as well. Like, there's an incredible amount of investment gone into improving the facility. I work in the Institute of Technology in Carlow, and we have a training facility for the Southeast, which is all the players And some of those players from the Southeast who played tonight would have trained in that facility. And again, it's a world-class training facility. So I think for me, it is massive. But yeah, maybe the players do miss a bit of resilience when they are training in something like that. However, if you want to play for your province, this is the type of environment that you have to perform in. So it is a good thing for them to work in world-class training facilities.
Yeah, we're certainly a long way from the baggy Bank of Scotland sponsored Leinster jerseys, your Victor Costellos and so on and so forth. But no, it is great to see that the facilities are there to expand the game of rugby across 32 counties to ensure that Irish rugby can thrive for generations to come, really, which I think is extremely important. Now, I do just want to mention again, we're 20 minutes in. If you do have any questions for either Garry or Brett, do leave a comment, do get in touch, and we can put your questions to them. And indeed, if you do comment, you'll be entered straight into a draw to win a PwC Ireland Under-20s jerseys. You can't get them in the shops, so certainly is a money can't buy prize, and certainly a beautiful jersey to get your hands on. We do have a question in, one for yourself, Garry. How much effect does crowds have in the game currently under COVID crowd restrictions? Obviously, we've been in a very lucky position at Leinster that crowds have come back in near the end of the season as well. There was a couple of test pilot events, but I suppose it was certainly difficult, even from a reporting perspective on the sideline, getting used to just the eerie silence. I suppose from a playing point of view, it has its ups and downs. You're able to hear the calls, hear your teammates a bit easier, but it must be great to have them back. And how much energy, how much do you feed off the atmosphere, that Leinster roar?
Yeah, it was it was weird, obviously, when it happened, and there was those sort of eerie dead silence during the game that we weren't used to. But then over the space of the last year, it's kind of become the norm, and you try to find other ways of kind of creating energy amongst the team. And even just that last game then in the RDS, when there was about 1,500 people at it, you kind of got a reminder of what it was like to play in front of a crowd, and it kind of got everyone thinking, geez, imagine if it was 20,000 and 3,000 in the Aviva on the weekend. So I'm sure they'll sound or be a little bit louder than what 3,000 people would normally sound like, but it's kind of a positive sign to return into normality. And I mean, I can't think of much better feelings than playing in front of a packed stadium and thriving or kind of feeding off that energy. So the sooner we're back to that, the better.
Absolutely. We're on the right path, I suppose, and long may it continue. Listen, Garry, we touched on it briefly, but I want to get into the detail. I want to get into the specifics here of your experience with the Ireland Under-20s, because there were a couple of players, to say the least, who've gone on to represent Ireland. There's a graphic of the Under-20s team that you played with, and a couple of big standout names were in that squad who've gone on to represent Ireland at senior level and indeed to feature for their provinces. Joey Carberry, we've Nick McCarthy, Ross Byrne, Jacob Stockdale, and indeed Billy Dardis and Greg O'Shea, who have got great things out of the Sevens games and are away with the at the Olympics now as well, which is a phenomenal achievement and absolutely great to see. But I suppose, Garry, how enjoyable was it playing with players of that quality? And did actually, do you know what? I'll put one to yourself first. Did you know at that age that you'd go on to be an Ireland international? Did you have that confidence and self-belief even then?
I not really like that, the way you phrased it. I think anyone you're in, like, you're rubbing shoulders with these guys, and it's so competitive that you don't really look beyond the week or two in front of you. So like, I was lucky enough to have 2 years of 20s, and the first year was a bit up and down, and kind of went through disappointment, to say, getting cut during the Six Nations and then back in for the World Cup. And then the following year was kind of not as successful as we would have hoped, considering we had a few of the guys playing that were listed there. But I think you're rubbing shoulders with these guys that are the best kind of in the country at your level. So it kind of brings the best out of you, as well as learning off them. You're competing with them, trying to be better. So when you're in the moment, you don't really think of what's going to come down the line or what's coming down the line. I don't think anyone really can at the time. But yeah, it's pretty cool seeing some of those names there, and especially obviously with Jacob playing this weekend and Joey back as well. It's great to see them, and then obviously the two Olympians in Greg and Billy. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty cool to think I played alongside them at the underage level and seeing them succeed now.
Yeah, certainly was a very talented crop and talented group. Just before we do finish up, Brett, I suppose Garry mentioned there, Billy and Greg. Just how important is the sevens game as well? I suppose this is a discussion in itself that we could go on to a different tangent, but it's great. The Olympic qualification is unbelievable, and it provides a platform for players to really excel. I suppose off the top of my head, Shane Daly has come from the sevens pathway as well. So there are players there who get great things and I suppose benefit greatly from the sevens game.
Yeah, look, it probably has a number fold now. I think in a few weeks' time, when we all stick on the Olympics and we see green jersey playing sevens rugby, I think for the public, I think that's a huge sell. I think it's a huge sell for the community departments in the branches and people like that. In terms of development, yeah, it's really come on. There's opportunities to play for your country that probably disappear for some of these players. I know the likes of Will Connors has come through the sevens program, Hugo Keenan, and they've gone on to full international cap. So it has proven to be a benefit. But look, for me, it'll sell to the public pretty well as soon as we see this happening in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do wrap up our PwC Under-20s live match reaction show, we do have a question in from CJ13 to yourself, Garry. What advice would you give to an 18-year-old Garry Ringrose?
Geez, that's a tough question.
Better than any of my questions I've posed to you tonight, to be fair. So that's why you do get your questions in. Get it entered into the draw for the jersey.
I guess. So trying to think what I got value in. Learn as much as you possibly can of the coaches and the players. I think there was so much experience around me, and I tried to do it at the time, but even in hindsight, I wish I did a bit more. And then I guess just stick at it. The sacrifices are worthwhile in the end. Especially kind of thinking back when you finish school, you've first year college, second year college, that what these guys are going through at the moment, which presents a different challenge maybe to in school, because you're not held back by the constraints of a school sort of curriculum program. You have a bit more freedom, so it kind of makes it a bit maybe more difficult with some of the sacrifices you have to make, certainly at that age, with what some of your mates kind of are getting up to. So probably the sacrifices, if you stick at it, they'll be worthwhile in the end. Maybe it's probably the best bit of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's great sacrifice, and I suppose with great sacrifice comes great reward as well. Brett, we have a question in from Ronan Lally that I might put to yourself. It must surely be a goal for the current under-20 squad to have the dream to play for the Ireland senior team in the future. I suppose that continues the conversation we have been having about, a few bolters to keep an eye on as well. But you'd expect and you'd want the players that are currently involved in this under-20s team to have that desire, to have that ambition to certainly go on to play senior international rugby.
Oh yeah, look, this is what the 20s is about at the moment. These kids are fighting for academy places, for sub-academy places, and then they're looking at the likes of Jamie, they're looking at Alex Kendallin, and they're going, I want to be him. I want to be that next person. So the 20s is a stepping stone for all of these players to be that next player. And they're putting themselves in the shop window. They're putting themselves in the shop window for the Andy Farrells, for the Stuart Lancasters and the Leo Cullens. That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, just before we do wrap up, if anyone does have any questions, do get them in, do comment, and you will be entered straight into a draw for PwC Ireland Under-20s jerseys that you can't get in the shop. So all you have to do to be entered into the draw is just leave a comment with a question, either for Brett or for Garry. Gents, just before we do go, I suppose it is a live match reaction show. Let's take a look at the table, the current standings of the Under-26 nations. So I suppose, Brett, we talked earlier that yes, the Grand Slam dream is gone now for Ireland, but they can still win the Six Nations. They play Italy up next as well. So the dream is still alive, and you'd hope certainly that the belief is still there as well, Brett.
Yeah, look, they will. They'll take time. They'll take the 24 hours post match. They'll review. They'll look at areas they need to get better at. They probably need to look at the discipline. Their line out probably didn't function as well as it has been the first two games. So they look at that. They'll probably be pretty disappointed looking at that game again. They didn't come away with a bonus point, which might come to something in the end. If we ended up with 2 bonus point wins against France and Italy, we probably put ourselves in a position. But we do need other results to go our way. We need England to be beaten somewhere along the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And judging on that performance and their previous performance, as I mentioned at the start, 69 points in 2 matches, 10 tries. It seems a pretty dominant performance by England so far. Gentlemen, listen, unfortunately, that is all we have time for our PwC Under-20s live match reaction show. We hope to be with you once again. But for now, sincere thanks to both Brett Igoe and indeed to Garry Ringrose, and indeed to you for tuning in here on Balls.ie social media channels. Until next time, from myself, from Brett, and from Garry, it's bye for now.